There is so much in your book and what you said in your speech today that really resonated with me, and I think my colleagues as well. There's one that I talk about all the time, which is just about attitude and having a positive attitude that really resonated with me. And I think we've all been we all get the concept that there are positive people in the room and they make everyone in the room positive. And we've all been in rooms where there's negative people and they really suck the energy out of a room. How is it that you and I and these people here make this positive attitude ubiquitous so everyone believes it and we're in rooms more often without this negative drain? Any thoughts?
Well, the message that your mother gave you, I'm getting away from drama and the people who create it. There are some people who are naturally drama queens. And they're very, very negative for an organization. And you know the signs. It's like something happens that that's negative, that's bad, however you want to define it. And either you have people who integrate it in their lives and their attitude and deal with it, or you have people who dramatize it. And I think we can give people a lot of information about what works in your organization. So it's not like it comes out of left field. I mean, for example, when I interview anyone, I give the same spiel, which is we have a very non-hierarchical organization. You can come in here and disagree with me about anything. You can be angry with me. You can say anything to me. But if I hear that you are always nice to me or to your bosses or to people in the leadership and then badmouth things behind their back, take this as your first and last warning. There is going to be no other warning. I think that is really what is important, a kind of zero tolerance policy, because you make it so clear at the beginning that if they don't hear it, or if they cannot act that way, you cannot play parent or therapist. That's really what makes it so hard. And that's why our rule of no brilliant jerks allowed has permeated the organization, because a lot of these people may be really smart. But that's not ultimately the most important quality to run an organization that is healthy and creative and where people work hard, but where they don't have unnecessary stress in their lives.
Yeah, I think that's a great point and great learnings, and certainly your brilliant jerks really resonated with us. I don't think we have too many brilliant jerks around, but we'll look. But I think it's really, really, maybe just one. It's very good advice. You know, you open your book and you open your speech today with an incredibly vivid story about what exhaustion did to you. And so it's nice that you would share it in such a way that makes people take notice. But I do have a question for the naysayers in the room to say, could you have achieved what you have achieved? Now, whether you think that's right or wrong about that's the right metric or not is another question, but could you have achieved what you have achieved in a different way and had the balance, had the three pillars of the stool, and still had the success in this world today?
Absolutely. I would say categorically. I could have achieved everything I've achieved and maybe more, with less stress, less damage to my health and my relationships. Absolutely, unequivocally. And I can say that because I know when I look back how a lot of my bad decisions, a lot of my failures were really things that I could have avoided. You know, when we look back, we have the advantage of 20/20 vision. But when we are rested and recharged, we can have 20/20 vision right now. So 20/20 vision is useful wherever you are, whether you're just starting in your career or whether you're at the top juggling multiple demands on your time. So the challenges are different, but how we approach them is the same. And even if we talk about even more extreme circumstances, you know, people struggling to put food on the table, people who've lost their jobs. There was a great study done by the University of Chicago. They looked at one of the biggest corporate downsizings in the States by the Illinois Bell Company. They fired at the same time 50% of the company. So the University of Chicago tracked what happened to these employees. And they found that 2/3 of them fell apart in some way. You know, they became depressed, they got divorced, they became alcoholics. 1/3 went on and thrived. They didn't just do well, they did better than they were doing. They started their own businesses, they got better jobs. It was the same event, right? Losing the job. But they all dealt with it very differently. So the ones who were able to tap into their own resilience discovered resources in themselves that they never even knew they had.
You did talk about failures, and I want to ask you about this because when we see successful people, we presume they're always successful. And so it's always interesting to hear a story of failure or disappointment or rejection, and how you sort of blasted through that and where you find the courage from. So if you could maybe tell us a story of rejection or a roadblock.
My second book was rejected by 36 publishers, and I was in my 20s, and I had run out of money by the time I got my 36th rejection, and I began to question whether this was the right career for me, and should I really go get a real job. And I remember walking down the street in St. James's Street in London, where I lived at the time, and I saw Barclays Bank. I didn't know Tangerine at the time. And I walked in and I asked to see the bank manager. And I asked for a loan, or as they call them in the UK, an overdraft. And I had no money, I had no assets. I only had lots of Greek chutzpah. And for some reason, the manager, Ian Bell, I remember his name, I sent him a holiday card every year still, gave me an overdraft. And that was like that moment, you know, that pivotal moment that allowed me to keep it together for another 4 rejections, and then I got an acceptance. And it also taught me something larger about life, which is that very often at a dark moment in our lives, like in fairy tales, when the hero or the heroine is lost in a dark forest, and then you have all these helpful animals that come out to get them out of the forest. Well, in life, too, there are helpful animals disguised as human beings, as bank managers maybe, who can actually be there at the moment that can be transformational. And, you know, my own mother, what she used to say to me was, failure is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success.
Yeah. That's a great story, and as you said, I'm sure there's many others as well. The last question I'm going to ask you comes from 2 places. It comes from a CEO trying to solve a problem, but also as a father. So I have a 12-year-old daughter who I was hoping could be here today, but she couldn't be here today, and I have 2 sons as well, and my wife Sylvia is right here as well. And the question is around women in the workplace, and I'm sure you get asked this a lot. As a CEO, I want to make sure that I'm not missing something, that we're not inadvertently creating barriers for fantastic women in our organization to be successful so we can get the benefit of diversity. I look at society and I think about my daughter, and I don't want her to encounter any barriers. What is your advice to me as a CEO and a member of the community and a father for what I can do, what we can do to improve or get this right?
Well, first of all, I would say listen to your mother, your wife, and your daughter.
Listen, all right.
And also, it's great to see a lot of women here. So you clearly have a lot of women already in positions in your organization. And I believe that it's not about quotas. It's not about 50-50, because I think that creates a kind of artificial measurement stick. I think it's really about encouraging women who have a harder time coming forward, to come forward and show who they are, to get a seat at the table. I notice that again and again, you know, we'll be, say, in our boardroom, and there's a large table, and the women will sit around the table rather than at the table. The young men who could have the same quote-unquote right to sit anywhere will take a seat at the table. So I think encouraging that attitude by kind of also the women higher up in the organization, identifying younger women that can mentor makes a big difference. But not just the women, the men too.
Yeah, I remember hearing Martha Stewart answer a similar question, not from my interview, about obstacles. And I think her response was that she advises people is, well, just jump over it. And I worry that that's sort of missing an element. And I think a different level of encouragement to make sure that they feel comfortable.
If I was asked that question by a young member of your staff, I would give a different answer. I might say jump over, but in this case, is what can somebody in a leadership position in the organization do to encourage that jumping over, to make it more likely?
Well, that's great advice, which I and we will take. One last super quick question. You mentioned that Huffington Post is going to be launching in Greece. We also know that that's where you're from, and probably a country that's had a difficult time in the last 5 or 6 years. What does it feel like for you to launch what you're doing in your home country of Greece?
It's very emotional. I'm trying to get the tears out before I get there. People have started saying
That's what I'm going for. So go.
He likes to make women cry, right? I'm already having one of our senior editorial team that launches our international editions is already in Athens, and one of our editors went to my high school in Plaka and started sending me pictures from the yearbook today. So it's definitely going to be emotional with all my members of my Greek family there. My sister and my younger daughter are also flying to Athens today. So, it took a while to launch in Greece. I always wanted to do it. It was hard to make a business case because it's advertising, obviously, is going to be very hard. So I always believe when you want to do something, you can find a way around it. So we could not make a business case, but I found some great Greek friends who decided to fund it. So, sometimes you can get around the business case and still do an international launch.
That sounds like a message that my employees are getting you to send me. So, anyway, listen, Arianna, in recognition of your time and so that you have some time to meet some people and sign some books, let me say on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for your authenticity, your sincerity, and for sharing your experiences with us. And hopefully we will learn without having to make the same mistakes in our life as well. So
thank you so
Arianna.
much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.